Pittsburgh, suggested that told me about this event, suggested that I come talk to you all about a project I've been working on for about a year and a half with Lauren and her team. But I do want to start by saying I'm trying to kind of like work my way into the group here. The first job that I ever had that wasn't hard labor was working in the library whenever I was an undergraduate student. Probably in 2004, I was at Penn State, and it was, I still to this day say that it's one of the kind of like formative experiences that made me think about going into research and scholarship as a profession. I hadn't really thought about that before, and I worked with some librarians at Penn State's library, and those ideas were, they introduced me to those ideas and what careers could be within that. So I'm always very appreciative of the libraries and working with them. But I want to talk to you today about this project that Lauren encouraged me to submit to this forum, using open access publishing to promote undergraduate research. So you'll notice that there were other students here who were going to present with me, but two of them graduated. One of them got an internship, and so they said, "We can't make it, Brett." And I said, "That's okay. I'm still keeping you on the slides." So background and context. I came to Pitt in October of 2019. I'm originally from Western Pennsylvania, but had been bouncing around the United States quite a bit. And when I got here in this director, so my position is the director of honors research programs for the University Honors College here at Pitt. And when I got here, I spoke with the dean at the time about potential programs that we wanted to build around research and scholarship. And one of the top things on her list was kind of reinvigorating a undergraduate student journal that had been born out of the Honors College, or what was then just an honors program, over 30 years ago, and it had gone kind of dormant for, I would say, probably about 8 years, completely student-run journal. And so she said, "I want to start that back up again." You know, it went dormant because there were staffing and volunteer challenges whenever you're working with student-run journals, I'm sure you know, or faculty-run journals for that matter. If there isn't some sort of succession planning, they can fall by the wayside. And that's what happened here. The journal had previously been hard copy with maybe a little bit of online content in the last few years that it existed, but mostly hard copy. And so as we decided that we wanted to grow as an honors college, we saw this as an opportunity to showcase the work of our students and really kind of bring in new students into the college. So the journal itself was called the Pittsburgh Undergraduate Review. Again, it actually had a history that was older than the Honors College itself. The Honors College was, like I said, more of an honors, informal honors program that was very small, and some of the original alum who were students at the time had started this journal, and it had a very long run. So we thought, instead of trying to start a new undergraduate research journal, we should try and kind of reinvigorate this old journal. But because of budgetary constraints, it had to be completely online. That was one thing that the dean told me, and I actually agreed with, said it should be completely online. What I didn't think of, at least immediately, and Lauren helped me think of, was open access. I had started whenever I was in a master's program at George Mason University, we had started a graduate student journal. And so that was also one of the reasons why I got, what's the term, voluntold to do this, but I was happy to do it. So my presentation really is going to go around, it's going to be a case study to kind of help you understand what we did basically over the course of a year, and obstacles, needs, things like that, so that we can think a little bit about how to develop these student journals. Because students, I found, they often want to start some sort of publication, whether that's just a student newspaper or a zine or some sort of informal publication. But there isn't a whole lot of formal guidance. You know, there's not some book that you can get at the library that says, at least not that I know of, maybe some of you do, that says how to start an undergraduate research journal, brand new undergraduate research. It just kind of doesn't exist. So I'll go over the who, what, where, why, when, and how. And then I think that number 7 is a typo on there. Recruitment. I think that was part of the how. So who? We wanted it to be student run. The original version of this was student run, but also with some faculty mentorship. That's good. What the faculty did, really though, I found in the original journal was they were just basically the peer reviewers. I understood that, but to be honest, I didn't like it. I wanted it to be completely student run, mainly because I think that's a great experience for the students. Not only is it kind of a learning how to work in the academic world if they want to go that way, not all of them do, but many of them do, but it's also essentially, you know, all sorts of transferable skills, project management, team building, etc. I knew that it had to have some sort of academic home. Of course, that was going to be us, the Honors College, and I'm a little bit biased, but I think that having one of these undergraduate student journals housed in an interdisciplinary academic unit is important when you're trying to start something new. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. But that doesn't have to be an honors college. Of course, it could be, but could be a different department or larger kind of like arts and sciences college, something along those lines that have a lot of different majors in it. I also advocated that it be tied to an actual staff or faculty position, literally written in to someone's job description, because that promotes sustainability. If I leave tomorrow for some reason, the Pittsburgh Undergraduate Review is in my job description. And when my position gets re-advertised out to someone else, management of that undergraduate journal and working with the library to keep that undergraduate journal going is in that job position. And then of course, we needed to pair with the library. I'm sure you all know that there are many student journals that will just kind of find their own kind of Weebly page or some sort of online publication, and you may never know that they exist, and they just kind of do that on their own, and that's fine. Again, I wanted to tie it to a university entity so that not only we had support for the platform, the OJS platform that we were using, but expert advice in publishing. I haven't worked in publishing. I've been a peer reviewer for journals, but I haven't done publishing. So I knew that I didn't have that skill set and that we needed that skill set. So the what? Talked about this a little bit, but an interdisciplinary journal. When you're starting a new journal or reinvigorating an old one, I'm a big believer in interdisciplinary journals for undergraduate students, especially from the beginning, because it doesn't limit the scope. If you're trying to build something up, you basically, if you're saying even something as interdisciplinary as political science, that's still limiting. We wanted to keep it open to all students. And again, we wanted it to be completely student run, including the peer review aspect of it, which I'll talk about in a second. And because of budgets, but because I actually frankly think it's a better format in many ways, we wanted it to be online, and as Lauren helped me understand the benefits of completely open access, I think not only for marketing purposes, but for kind of like ease of student submissions and transparency. So where, again, the Honors College worked very well for us, because one of the unique things about Honors Colleges is we are, unlike some other departments on campus, we are here to serve students and faculty in all disciplines, and we interact with them across disciplines and across departments. So it is kind of a unique place to have this undergraduate research journal. And then partnering with Hillman ensured that we have those kind of stable resources so that it's not a student trying to host a journal on a Facebook page or whatever else. So why did we want to kind of reinvigorate this old journal? Well, we wanted to honor the existing history of the journal. Again, it was older than the Honors College itself in many ways. If you look it up, and I'm happy to send a link to someone, George Stephanopoulos had published one of the original, like, first few copies of the Pittsburgh Undergraduate Review. And so there's a lot of history there with our alum and students. Provides an educational experience, but as I said, also a kind of a team-based practical experience for the editors. We built in very specific. I wrote the initial job descriptions, then I worked with the editorial board, the initial editorial board, to say, is this what you want the job descriptions to be? Go take a look at job descriptions from other journals for editor-in-chief, an associate editor, an assistant editor, a secretary. See what they say. See if you want to add those things, so they could literally get that experience of forming the team in a way that they thought made sense. And of course, undergraduate research is hip. What do I mean by that? It's a high impact practice. In education, that's my background. We know that research is a high impact practice that promotes retention, engagement, time to degree. And so this is a kind of low risk, high reward way for students to get into research. So the when is, we had to think of a timeline. I mean, the dean told me, go do this and let me know when it's done. That was pretty much the only orders that I had. So I thought a year was realistic, even though it existed. I thought it was realistic to start. I mean, we were basically starting from scratch, even though we had a little bit of an infrastructure. We came pretty close to that. So this was the original timeline. So in the fall, early spring, getting the journal developed, forming the journal name, which we really already had decided to stay with. Its general focus, student position descriptions, working with Lauren and Lauren's team in the Office of Scholarly Communications and Publishing to discuss the resources, get trained on those resources. Again, if we want it to be sustainable, we want to be able to do as much as we can. Also, I'm sure you all know, you all are overworked, so I can't be running to Lauren every time I say, how do we do this submission thing again? And I can't remember who does what in this, and I can't find this thing on the back end. We need to be able to know how to do that. So training was key. Skipping ahead a little bit into the fall. So we did peer review training. So I developed a peer review program for the students, telling them, what is peer review? How do you do good peer review? And so we recruited peer reviewers in addition to the editorial board. And then we had basically 2 trainings, an initial one talking about peer review. Then I would give them some kind of take home examples. A couple of them were real examples. A couple of them were made up ones that I wrote so that they could review these kind of mock submissions and send me back. I created a rubric for the students to use. I wanted to do that for 2 reasons. Again, a broken record, educational, but also I knew that with the history, there might be a little bit of kickback from some to say, why are students peer reviewing scholarship? My simple answer to that is because it's a good experience for them. They know how to do it and they don't get any training. Did you get any training in peer review before you peer reviewed your first article? The answer to that is usually, well, I guess not. But 2, again, this isn't, while I hope this grows to be a large journal, this isn't a global publication yet. And so again, I think low risk, high reward for having this type of activity. And so we did end up, not quite in spring 2021, but actually probably right about around this time of year, early summer, published our first issue. We're about to publish our second issue, which is another reason why one of the students presenting with me aren't here. I said, okay, you don't have to come present, but how's that second issue coming? So again, the peer review, I just talked about this a little bit, so I'll skip over some of this sometime, but a little bit of a sample of the peer review kind of training curriculum rubrics. We included this as part of a proposal to the library, which Lauren's team has had us do before kind of getting the official okay for this journal and using the OJS system through Hillman here. So speaking of that proposal, I thought that this was one of the, as somebody who had to help build it was a graduate student journal, but build it from scratch, I actually loved that the library provided this for us. So I had the experience doing that, but that first experience was us, just digging around in other journals, reading any articles that we could find, and then making it up So what the library provided us was a structure for like, here's what we want to know before we say, okay, your journal is good to go. Because I think another thing that the library here doesn't want to do, or none of us want to have happen, is, again, students get very excited about an idea. They start a journal, maybe they publish one issue, and they graduate, and they lose interest, etc. So these are the different sections of the proposal that we had to fill out, and it helped us having this, requiring us to do this proposal, helped me very much as an administrator. There were many times where my dean came to me and said, oh, so how's the journal going? And I actually used the draft proposal that the library asked me to put together as like an update, because I take terrible notes myself. And this gave me structure. I could just go back to this draft that I was making for the library and be like, oh, here it is. And she thought that was great. I didn't tell her it was a proposal for the library. I said, like, well, here's a document that I'm making. Sorry, Lauren. So yes, and particularly the open access and copyright policies was very helpful. Something honestly I had not thought about. We had to create journal bylaws from scratch. We didn't have those. I would think that they existed somewhere in the previous version, but we created those from scratch. That was very helpful for the students and helpful for the proposal. So a few obstacles, costs, and considerations. So obstacles, student recruitment. I didn't find that actually that was much of an obstacle at all. Students, I think particularly the undergraduate level, want to participate in things like that. One, to build up their CVs, but two, to be involved in something. I did, maybe because Pitt is very STEM heavy and very health sciences heavy, I did get more students from the health sciences. I would have liked to have more from the arts and humanities and social sciences, because it is an interdisciplinary journal. We take submissions that are traditional empirical research, but we also take creative writing and visual arts pieces. So that was a slight obstacle, is rounding out the number of students, or the backgrounds of the students who are applying to these positions. Marketing the journal, you know, when we were ready to have that first issue and wanted to have students submit, we didn't have a marketing person at the time. They had left for different positions. That was a little difficult, but having the website through the OJS system was helpful. And then of course, for us, reinventing that journal while staying true, I had to train myself to not say the new Pittsburgh Undergraduate Review, because I said that once at an alumni event and was quickly told, this is not a new journal, it has been around for a long time. I said, okay, you are absolutely right. Costs, the OJS platform, honestly minimal for us. I think it's a great partnership. So it wasn't more, I don't know if we want to say the exact number, but very affordable, we'll say, to have a year-long kind of hosting platform that has that level of support. I think was really great. Student stipends eventually, and this is partly for sustainability, but also for the students. I'd like to give students who are on the editorial board some sort of stipend for being on that board and the work that they do. They're happy to do it, often for no money, but I would like to give them some money. Then other considerations. So the consideration of other student journals, you know, there's a little bit of competing amongst ourselves. Sometimes we have another undergraduate student journal here that's fairly established at Pitt. It's one of the, you know, it's one of those journals that I think is more just independently run, though it is fairly big. It's called Forbes and Fifth for these two roads out here. And it's a good journal. Yeah. So there was a little bit, I didn't want to internally compete with that, even though they're both interdisciplinary journals. I wanted to really consider when we were making this journal, like, all right, why is this different than Forbes and Fifth? The timeline, again, it was be realistic, you know, whatever you think it might be, add a few months to it. Things happen. Sustainability planning is still tough. It's still something that we're working with. Again, for the third time, these poor students, I love them. They're fantastic. They worked really hard, but two of them graduated. And I said to them, I said, no, we got to finish this last part of what we worked into the job descriptions of the editorial board was, you know, about 6 months out, before you know you're going to graduate, you should try and recruit and train your replacement for whatever position that you're in. They're trying. And then the student training, that's mostly work for Lauren and I and the library. And I think if you take the time to really work it out at the beginning, it's a lot less work. Have a written curriculum, then the more you have to do it, the more it's just kind of like you can go through it. So some pictures of up here on the left is actually the landing page for the journal right now. All the graphics and logo were designed by one of the editorial board members. So we had a graphic design manager as kind of one of the editorial board members, and then other students doing some of the research, pictures of students doing research that was published or submitted to the journal. I think that is it. Yeah, that's my question slide. So